Hey there, Virtual CEO Society. It's me again, Belton Shaw. And Tuesday at 2 sometimes slips by us, but we never get enough of giving you valuable information to help you be a better you, and ultimately to help you be a better leader. The book that I'm writing, Leadership Dynamics, 52 Principles that every successful leader needs to embrace, is going to be one of the most powerful things that I've ever written. And what I thought I'd do today is to bring you a little excerpt from the book. Now, you always hear me talk about some of the principles from time to time in different speeches that I give, different workshops that I give, different seminars. But today, we're going to talk about one of the things that I think is probably one of the biggest pillars to the success of any leader, any manager, even individual, and that's communication. We can never communicate well enough unless the other person on the other end of the communication totally understands or grasps the concept that we're trying to communicate. So let me just, for lack of a better situation, tell you a little bit about how I look at communication. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the learning styles, because, communication has to change, just like speeches have to change, just like marketing has to change, because marketing is communication to fit the style of the individual or the target of the information. So you heard me say in organizations, when you feel as though you've communicated, depending on the size of the communication, your level of the size of the organization, the level of your communication has to change. Small organizations, it's easier to communicate because you've got a more intimate setting and a lot of fewer variables. In larger organizations, the dynamics changes. You've got more people, you've got more interpretations, you've got more learning styles, you've got more opportunities for people not to get the correct message. Therefore, for lack of a better term, unfortunately, if people don't have information, they make it up. Yeah, you heard it from me. If people don't have information from you, they make it up. They assume. What's the old adage say? If you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So what we want to make sure that we don't afford the opportunity for people to do is to make assumptions. We want to make sure the information that we are communicating to them is given to them clearly, concisely, and in a method that they can understand. When you think you've communicated enough, communicate some more, because people can never have too much information. Reed Markham, who's a PhD, said communication is at the core of effective leadership. Through a leader's use of verbal and written symbols, employees are motivated, deflated, informed, or confused, productive or apathetic, excuse me. A leader's ability to carve off the verbal fat and get to the meat of an issue, idea, or plan will find success in every turn. When I read that the first time, I was like, wow, he has surmised or put together the essence of everything in communication. You motivate people or you deflate people, depending on how you're delivering the message. So, we may think that we have given you information that is valuable information. I may think that I have done the greatest job when I'm standing on stage in front of 20, 50, 1,000 people communicating my message or my thoughts to them appropriately based on how I process information. The most important thing to remember as a leader or as a communicator, how you process information is somewhat secondary to how the other person or the person that you're targeting is processing the information that you're communicating to them. If they're not getting it, sometimes it's because they don't have the ability to process the information the way you think or thought they should. So let's talk a little bit about the 7 different ways that people learn, or for this particular instance, those 7 different ways that people comfortably process information. Number 1, you're going to have people in your audience who are visual. And people who are visual, they are visual learners. They learn, they process information through pictorial or demonstrations. They instinctively follow you with directions. They follow you by watching, by observing, by seeing. They can easily visualize objects. If you have a PowerPoint presentation or you have a marketing concept that you have put in a commercial or you've put in a poster or a flyer, if it's colorful, if it's effective to them, it's a good opportunity for them to visualize the communication that you're trying to give them. They have a great balance of alignment. They can put things together visually. They can put, you ever see a kid who really likes puzzles or really likes designs or is an artist? They are visual. They really conceptualize things through watching, seeing, and observing. They are very organized. These people are the organizational people. You walk into their office and there's a place for everything. Everything's in its place because they want that visual comfort when they walk in. So the question that you have to ask yourself as a leader, as a communicator, as a speaker, as a trainer, as a coach, what's the best way for me to communicate with them so that they're getting the message? And what is that? Really, you're asking yourself, what is the best way for them to learn? How do they learn best? So what we have to do is unwrap what their learning style is, because their learning style is visual, and figure out how do I give them the information that's going to allow them to process it so that it is absorbed. Make sense? Kind of makes sense to me. It's funny because I sit and I watch people. I'm a people watcher. And oftentimes you can tell a visual person because they're the kind of person who will sit on the side of a hill and be comfortable because they're watching, they're visualizing a sunset, sunrise, they're watching people enjoy themselves. They even watch games. I'm a visual person in a lot of respects. Why? Because I watch soccer games. If you ever really sit down and watch a game for long periods of time and really enjoy it and really take it apart and analyze it, it's because you're visual. If you like to go to museums and walk through museums and analyze and enjoy artworks, a lot of times it's because you're visually oriented. So they like presentations. They like studying notes on an overhead, whiteboards, smart boards, PowerPoint presentations. If you have those types of things in your presentation, the people in your audience who are visually oriented are in tune to that. They're watching it. They're dissecting it in their mind. They're processing that information visually. They like reading diagrams and handouts. So if you have diagrams and you have handouts, the part of your audience that's visually oriented will be those people who take that part of your communication process and they enjoy it. It touches them. You've gotten to them. You've really taken apart how they process information. They like study guides. They'll take the study guide and they'll go through the process with the study guide, step by step, analyzing the information, understanding the concepts because they're visualizing it as they read through the study guide. They like to read textbooks. Visual people are not afraid of reading textbooks. Now, a lot of people don't like to read. But visual people like to read because it is in their makeup. They also have a tendency to study alone. If you really understand visual people, you'll understand that they're not afraid of being by themselves. They're not afraid of going off and doing projects on their own, because what they're doing is not just visualizing it with their eyes, but they're visualizing it with their mind. They're putting together the concepts step by step in their mind so that they can then come back to you and pretty much communicate back to you what it is they have taken away. So if you ever go to a presentation or you're doing a presentation, you see somebody up on the stage or in front of the room, and they've got a lot of visuals as far as PowerPoint or a commercial or something of that nature, then you understand that they are trying to appeal to that segment of the audience that are visually inclined. Give you an example. Corporations spend multi-million dollars to develop commercials for the Super Bowl and some of the major sporting events. Why? Because in 30 seconds, they are capturing your visual learning experience. They're communicating to you verbally and visually in 30 seconds or less. The mind is processing that information so fast. It is absorbing everything that's being communicated, not only consciously, but subconsciously, and processing the information. So when you watch a commercial the first time, you process a certain amount of the information, both mentally and consciously and subconsciously through your visual filters. When you watch it a second time, you'll catch something different than what you caught the first time. And if you watch it a third time, there'll be aspects of the commercial that you didn't see, that you didn't capture, that you didn't catch. This past weekend, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was at a conference, and we were talking about something similar. But we're not talking about it in the relationship as if to commercials. We were talking about books. And a good friend of mine who was on the stage, Carlos Spencer, talked about the fact that he read 26 books in 26 days, something like that. And what he was really trying to communicate was the fact that he was bragging about reading 26 books in 26 days. But here's what he said, which was extremely powerful and something that I want you to take away. Not because I said it, but because it makes sense. It's a great communication tool. It's not the first time that